From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
I'm Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief digital strategist at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, I have Ricky Black with me, and we're going to talk all about WordPress Accessibility Day. Get back, relax, and enjoy the show. The SDM show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob here, and today I have my guest, Ricky Blacker of WP Engine. How are you, Ricky?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking.
And you're coming to us from that side on the other side of the ocean called Australia. So thank you for taking the time at this late, ungodly hour for you. That's a little late.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a bit late, but it's all good because like I was saying, I'm a bit of a night owl, so
Yeah. So today we thought we'd talk about WP Accessibility Day. It's coming up on the 15th and 16th of October. Why do I care? Why do I care about WP? Better still, let me backtrack a bit. You work for WP Engine, you're in a WordPress space. How did you end up in a WordPress space? I want to ask you
that's a
that
good
question.
question. So I'll try and make it as short as possible. I worked in a factory for 20 years and they shut the factory down. I had to find a new career and I wanted to get into the IT space, so I taught myself web design. I already knew how to create a website with HTML and the CSS, and I used Notepad++, and away I went. And that I taught myself that for a long time and thought, I'm going to be a web developer. And then I heard about these things called a CMS. So I did my research. I found free open source CMSs, Joomla, Drupal, WordPress, and WordPress from all my research came out as the winner. It was funny, I did a course on, it used to be called lynda.com, but it's called LinkedIn Learning now. But I did Morten Rand Hendrickson, he did the Learning WordPress course, and I did that. It took me about 6 hours to learn that. And then I did the 5-minute install, which took probably half an hour. And the first time I ever made a WordPress site, I thought, who's ever going to pay me to do this? Because I had a website up and running in about 2 hours. And it was at that point I thought, this is too easy. But I actually made a good career out of building websites. So for about 4 or 5 years, I had my own little business web agency. I figured nobody would employ me because I had no real skills. So I just created my own business like a lot of us do and freelanced and did that for quite a while until I went to the dark side and joined WP Engine yes, as a career goal. And so I've been with WP Engine since 2017. So that's kind of my journey into WordPress. It was I've always thought it was unique, but I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and it's interesting to see people coming from all different walks of life and different industries and careers, and suddenly find themselves become web designers and
Yeah.
digital marketers and all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's quite interesting the path, and there's a multitude of stories. So thanks for sharing that. So go back to my original question: is WP Accessibility Days coming, and why do I care?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why should you care?
Yeah,
I think this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. I think everybody should care about accessibility. I think for two reasons. One, websites should be accessible to absolutely everybody. It's easy when you have, especially, when you're younger and you've got all your faculties and, you don't have any disabilities. It's easy to get through life. Just a simple thing like looking at a website for some people can be quite daunting. It can be quite challenging. And we have to consider that, and some people don't care. Hey, I've just got this little site that I do. I don't make any money out of it. Why should I care about who sees my site? But you know, we really need to make sure that if you've got something that's worth putting out on the internet, we should try and make the best effort we can to make it accessible to everybody. But the other side of this is when we talk about accessibility, the first kind of thing we always think about is like, making it accessible for people with, vision, disabilities and, dyslexia and, uh, motion, like if you've got mobility issues, all that kind of stuff. But in reality, when we talk about accessibility, we mean making it accessible for everybody, even people who don't have any issues at all. If you make a website that's hard to navigate, hard to interact with, that's the other side of accessibility. We've all been there where we've gone to a website, we tried to do something, we can't find where we need to go or do what we need to do, and we get frustrated. That is all part of accessibility. You want to make sure that your website can be fully enjoyed by everybody. In whichever way, whatever you're trying to get out there, whether you're trying to sell a product or just get maybe do some videos on how to build Arduino projects, whatever it is, you need to make it accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I would agree. And one of the things we got to think of is somebody might not have a disability. But for example, I'll take my own mother. She's 80 years old. She doesn't see the way she used to see. That's just a fact of aging. So are we thinking about things like making even website fonts? I always curse, and I'm younger, but I'm not older. And I always curse that person that does a does a website in a 12-point font. It's like, why? And it's little things like including even the font size matter for even regular people like you and I, Ricky.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just little things. I mean, we try and make the websites look as amazing as possible, but we've also got to make sure that we're not making them sure they look amazing, but if people can't read the words or they can't get to the part that they need to get to, then what's the point? You need to make it. And in this day and age, people want to get to see the information, do the thing as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we all like a nice looking website, but if it's at this, the offset of, being able to use it, then it's kind of it's a disappointing result. And I think the biggest problem is that a lot of times people build out beautiful websites and then at the very last minute they go, oh, we have to make this accessible. And then this is where the real issue comes in, is that people try and make a website accessible instead of starting from the very beginning, the very initial thought of how we're going to build out this website. It should be, how can we make this website accessible to everybody?
Yeah.
And if you build that in from the very beginning, then it's not such a hard job at the end, because I've seen so many people struggle with trying to retrofit accessibility into websites. And if they, you know, I remember when I first started developing, there was mobile phones had just come out, and there was this big push for mobile first. Let's design for the mobile first, and instead of stripping things out to try and make it work on a mobile, let's make it look amazing on a mobile, and then build out extra things for bigger screens. And I think that's what we need to do with accessibility. We need to start with accessibility, then add all your flourishes and things at the end, but you've got that good base to start with.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's a bit of a problem. I mean, now one of the reasons we people go down the accessibility road, and I think it's the wrong reason, instead of doing it for the right reasons, is legal reasons. We all know in certain countries accessibility is a legal requirement. We all know, I don't know about Australia, but I can tell you in Ontario, there's government regulations if you're a government institution. I did a short-term contract for a government institution about 3 years ago that was provincially affiliated, and or 4 years ago. And what I'll tell you is they had to do everything accessible, so that was interesting. By the way, not including just the web, the emails that went out in your mailing list, the PDF documents, people forget about that stuff. They forget about things like, oh, let's make the colors right. But the simplest thing is how many people still don't put in alt tags into an image, into
Yeah.
like, aren't those just some like basic things?
Yeah, it is. A lot of times it has really positive side effects too. If you use alt tags correctly on images, especially if you have an e-commerce store, if you're using alt tags correctly, this can really help. with people discovering your products. A lot of people will search by images now. And I know AI is coming in and helping a lot with this now, but I mean, especially, if you've got images with really good alt tags explaining what that image is, Google can find out a lot easier. If you're looking for a product and you see an image of it, and then you go and click on the website associated with that image, the potential for sales is much higher. So just doing simple things like alt tags, which is going to help with screen readers and all sorts of things, is also going to potentially help with your bottom line if you've got an e-commerce store or a brand or whatever.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's actually good for SEO. That's basically what we're talking about is
Yeah.
if you do things in the accessible world, the SEO is better. If you're starting a new website and you're planning it out for accessibility first, what are the first three things you should start with? Do you have any idea?
I mean, it's a hard one because I guess every website's going to be different. But
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, the first thing I would start with is obviously the visual, making sure that you pick, if you've got a brand color, for example, finding, like complementing colors for the website that aren't going to make things hard to see.
Mhm.
Picking the right fonts, picking the functionality of the site, and making sure, because one of the big things I find with accessibility is making sure that websites are, functioning in the right way, that people can do what they need to do quickly and easily. We've all been there where you know, a good one is, and especially on big corporate sites, you want to contact them, that you've got a problem and you want to contact somebody, and they make the contact page or contact details are so incredibly hard to find that after half an hour you give up, and that's probably part of their planning. But that kind of thing. If you're looking for information on site, find I guess building in that functionality, building in the workflows so it makes it very easy to get to where they need to go. That's a big part of it. And then obviously the most important part is thinking about disabilities and legal requirements,
Yeah.
building those components in right from the very beginning are vitally important because, like I say, if you get to the end of the project and somebody says you have a legal requirement to do these things and you have to retrofit them, it can be expensive, it can be problematic, and people just don't like doing it. They'd rather, if you did this from the beginning, you would have so much an easier path down, and everything can be built around it.
No, I agree with you. Sometimes if you do things after the fact, and it's gonna take you 10 times as long,
Yeah.
easier on that one. Um, in Australia, where you are, do you have laws in place like we do in North America around accessibility? Are they as vague? Are they tough? Are they like what
Yeah,
do you
look,
what the
we do definitely have the laws. I mean, the normal WCAG laws that and requirements that there's certain laws, especially around government and like sites that design for people, to assist people from especially government and education, that kind of thing. There are a lot of laws. We're not a very litigious society in Australia, but I mean,
Mhm.
there's still a lot of suing goes on. And I know, like for example, there was a very big case when the Australian Olympics were on. It was back, when that was quite many years ago. But there was somebody who sued the Olympic Committee because on the website they tried to buy tickets and they couldn't because of some kind of accessibility problem, and so they were able to successfully sue the Olympic because they wanted to buy tickets and they couldn't, and that was a disadvantage to them because the website wasn't built correctly. So you know there's definitely some laws, and there's definitely some litigation going on around that, websites that don't come up to code, I guess.
Yeah. Is that mostly in the government sector, or is that in like people trying to buy stuff? Restaurants are a common one. We've heard about restaurants in the US all the time that somebody tries to order a Domino's pizza, and you know what happens, right?
Yeah, I
They just
think yeah, I think mostly people will vote with their feet. If the website's not working correctly, they're just going to go somewhere else. And
yeah,
I think that's probably the biggest problem we have. And the thing is, I try and tell people that a lot of times people will, if they go to a web, if you go to a website and you're having a rough time traversing the website, you don't get on the phone and say, "Hey, your website's terrible." You just go and find another website that does the same thing and use that website that, one that's
Yeah.
designed better.
Yeah.
And people, from a company perspective, they're getting traffic and they think, oh, we're doing everything correct, but they don't understand the amount of traffic or the amount of customers they're losing. So that's probably the biggest problem in Australia is just companies, websites just losing traffic because and not knowing about it.
Yeah, I would agree. Accessibility plugins. There's several of them out there. Do they work? Do they not work? I was thinking of, I think Amber Hines over at Equalize Digital has one. Are they worth doing, or should you stay away from them?
I think you've got to be very careful about which ones. I know Amber's plugin is very, very well built. When I first I did a course on accessibility about 2 years ago, just to get myself up to scratch, and with a company here in Brisbane, Australia. And um, one of the things that really surprised me was part of that course that I was told to be very careful about these, what they call these overlay plugins or plugins that would
Yeah.
the one of the biggest issues we have is there's a lot of plugins out there that promise to make a website accessible. And what they do is they do some good things, but it's not what actually makes the website accessible. I mean, these overlays can make the text bigger and help with contrast and things like that, but it doesn't actually get to the root of the accessibility problems of the website. It could be, the alt tags or, you know, different things on the website that it doesn't address. So, but I've seen some even, government websites where they've put on a plugin like this and gone, oh, we ticked the box, we're accessible now, when they actually haven't addressed the problem. So that's where you've got to be really careful. And I think you need to, even if you do get an all singing, all dancing accessibility plugin, there's still some things at the root that you need to do. You can't rely on that solely.
Okay, so let's talk about them. What at the root should you do?
Well, obviously things like alt tags, uh, just making this. I mean, there are so many things. And I guess this is the problem why a lot of people are scared of accessibility because there are so many. If you go through the WCAG rules, there are a lot of them, um,
Tons.
and and it can be very daunting. But if you actually take the time to look at them all, they it's just common sense. It's really just common sense, Let's make sure that the contrasting colors, are working so you don't make it. Interesting, a fun fact that one of the first websites ever built did this very large e-commerce site, and I remember that I was actually on site with the customer one day, and with the customer who I built the website for. One of their customers rang up and said, "I can't see the website. I can't see the writing on the website," and I'm thinking that maybe the browser's not working properly. But what it was I was, it's one of my first websites, and I'm not very good with colors, but I had dark blue on black background. Looked
Oh, okay.
amazing, looked amazing, and everybody said it looked great. But for somebody with color blindness, it
Yeah.
was just a totally black screen. So I very quickly, and this was probably what really kickstarted my whole accessibility kind of journey, was I suddenly had this realization that, oh, there's more than just throwing some, text and colors on the screen. You've really got to be careful. And from that point onwards, always made sure I had very contrasting colors for your background and your text. So
Yeah.
blacks and
Yeah.
whites, or white background and black text, or as black as I can make it. So that was, like, it's just simple things like that. The other thing is predictability was one of the big things that was really eye-opening for me, and I also experienced this firsthand. So predictability is when you expect something to happen in a certain way, and we kind of get conditioned on certain things to happen.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a website for a home show, and it said get your free tickets here, and so you fill out a little form and you hit submit, and I never got any free tickets. And I did this about 10 times and never got any free tickets. And it wasn't until probably the 11th or 12th time that I realized that what was happening is you fill out your details and then you hit submit, and then the form cleared. And in normal behavior, when the form clears, it's been submitted and there's nothing else to do. What was actually happening, because I wanted two tickets, and the very beginning, when one of the questions was, how many tickets do you want? I said two. When you hit submit, it actually cleared the form, and then at the top in very small writing is details for person two. And until
Uh,
you put those details in, it didn't fulfill the complete form. Right now, because of my expected behavior, I didn't realize that this was happening. And this is the flaw. So it's just something as simple as expected behavior
yeah.
is something that you need to be aware of. Simple things like don't have videos playing with the volume going full pelt.
Oh,
Australian word full pelt, but very loud.
yeah. Same thing. Like you shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. But yeah, I agree.
And it's just little thing. This is where if you read through all of the rules on accessibility, and they're not rules as such. I mean, they're guidelines. There are some obviously there's criteria to get your level one or your tier one, tier two, tier three. And there's some very high criteria when you're going to those higher levels to complete. But
Mm.
in reality, it's just common sense and making sure that everything works the way we expect it to.
Yeah, and that's part of it. And I would say, we've talked about how to test, and one of those ways people like to test accessibility is run screen reader software and
Yeah.
run something like JAWS and test that way. But here's the thing. If you are an able-bodied sight person, I don't think testing with the screen reader is going to get you 100% of the testing you need. I think you need to find somebody who's really, if you can, has accessibility problems and get them to do the testing for you. Because I think that would be more valuable. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. And I've done the screen reader myself, and you absolutely correct
Yeah.
because unless you put a blindfold on, but even still, uh, you you don't really appreciate what it's like to have, and it's not just that blindness. There's a lot of motion, mobility issues, all sorts of things. But definitely get some people. There's some companies out there that the company that I did the accessibility training with, they have some people. Most of the people on the staff have disabilities, and you can actually go to them and get them to test your website, and they can do it in a proper way because they're used to. They've got the disabilities and they can pick up on those problems straight away.
Yeah. And I think a lot of companies don't go down this road because they're afraid of the costs involved. I really do. And they need to understand, but being accessible actually opens up to the more business than closes down. So the cost to me is worth it in the long run, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when they have a brick and mortar store,
Hmm.
you try and make access to that store as easy as possible. You try and make everything when you go into the store, you make sure that there's plenty of room for people to walk around, that they can get to a cash register easy. You do everything in your power to make it accessible. And if you see people having trouble getting in, you find a way to make it better.
Yeah. So
So we need to do that with websites.
we need to do that and sooner than later. Um, there's that, and then there's the other side, and we already talked about. You don't want to get into the legal side of this because that's where the class action lawsuits start. That's where it gets expensive. Uh, I'm going to be a real Debbie Downer and say class action lawsuits only benefit the lawyers involved, not the average person. But that's another
Yeah.
story. And we all know where that cycles very quickly, right? It's like
Yeah.
so. WP Accessibility Day. What kind of speakers do you have coming up? Do you know at this point? Or
We've got some really good speakers. I don't know if we've announced them all yet, or any of them.
can you
But
share?
yeah,
Can you share a couple of them, or a couple of the topics that are going to be covered?
well, the topics are going to be varied. So the event runs for 24 hours, and that's the exciting part. So it covers all the time zones. It starts in the afternoon in the US time, goes through the night in the US, but it's through the day in Australia, into the European time, and finishes up um, in the early morning of the US time from memory. So it's a 24-hour. We have speakers from all over the world, and last year was the first year I was involved with it. And uh, my role was technical lead during the Australian time zone. So we had some very interesting people from Australia, from America, from Berlin, from all over the world, Africa. So we had all these people with amazing insights into accessibility, into, some great lessons on how to, to make websites more accessible. So there's a lot of things that come together with this. And this year is proving to be even more exciting. So we've got some really good speakers lined up. I don't think they've been announced yet. I'm just looking. Let's see. I could be wrong. Oh, no, we have got the speakers up. It's been a while since I looked at the website. So uh, we've got some really good speakers from around the world speaking on some amazing topics. So if you go to 2025.wpaccessibility.day, schedule speakers, you'll be able to see all the speakers. And we've got about 20, I think it's 25 to 27 speakers we're going to have.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. And I take it if you go to that website, you can also sign up for WP Accessibility Day.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It,
a free event, so there's no cost to it. It's sign up, you get all, kept in the loop of when it's going to happen and how you can log in, all that kind of thing. So yeah, please go to the website, register, get your tickets, and join us for. And the beauty of it is you can join live, ask questions of the speakers. Um, and all of the talks are recorded, and then after the event, we'll have all those talks available. So if you don't aren't able to stay up during the night and see, or whenever, if the time zones don't line up, you know you can go back later and see the video of the talk.
I have to ask, since you've kind of done the 24-hour con online conference, does one particular part of the world generate more viewers than the other, or is it kind of Europe, North America, a little bit of Asia? Is that kind of the mix, or is it pretty
It's
Australia, or is it pretty varied?
It varies. I think we do get, I mean, obviously, there's certain parts of the world that have bigger populations. Australia is a very large place with a very small population, but we do go into the Asian time zone as well. So we got a lot of people in Asia who will be joining us. Of course, European, we got a lot of people in Europe, all over the world. America obviously is probably the dominant of audience. It gets
Mm,
or that Canada, America, South America. We get a lot
yeah.
of people from that region.
Okay. If somebody has any more questions about WP Accessibility Day, where can they go?
Well, they can go to the website. I'm sure. Let me just have a look and see. A there's a contact
Contact
us.
us.
Yep, and you've got there's contact us. We've got the register attend. But yeah, we've got some great organizers. We've got myself, obviously we've got Amber. We've got, you
Yeah.
know,
There's a
the
lot of,
amazing.
it takes an amazing team to make a conference like this run that is 24 hours, because then you get into all the technical side and and I take it most of the talks are probably going to be typically pre-recorded with the people doing the talks in the chat at the time so they can answer questions. It's often the way
uh,
they roll, which is way better for technical than trying to do live. I've been on the other end where I've actually done live conferences and in the middle of my talk had my internet go down just for fun. I've been there, done that. Yeah, you
Yep.
laugh, but it happens. That's
Yeah.
the whole thing about going live, right, Ricky? I mean,
Exactly. Yep.
you
Anything can
know,
happen. I've had people come into my office when I was doing a live talk. So it's
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah. What platform are you using to do the conference?
We're using Zoom, so we're using the web conference version of Zoom, which is works really well. Yeah, last year we actually did the talks live. This year we are pre-recording them.
Yeah.
So we did have some, last year it was very nerve-wracking doing live, doing it all live because getting everybody, just getting them set up and get the cameras rolling. And we did have one person who, I think it was one or two that didn't turn up on time for various reasons. I think there was somebody who was in a hurricane at the time, so that they couldn't come on because they had no power. So those kind of things happen. So at least pre-recording, we can avoid any of those kind of issues, but they'll still have the speakers there to answer the questions, which is really good.
Yeah, that's really important. Hey, Ricky, I wish you good luck with the conference and WP Accessibility Day. I would encourage anybody to go out and learn. It will probably open up some eyes and ears just a little bit more because I think this is one drum we have to keep beating in the WordPress space. I think a lot of people
Absolutely.
think, oh, no big deal. And it really is a big deal. So thank you for sharing your experience and your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you for sharing your time with me and letting me tell everybody about WordPress Accessibility Day. And I look forward to seeing yourself and hopefully lots of others there on the day.
Oh, you will. Thank you very much. Have a great day, Ricky. Bye bye.
Thanks, Rob. Bye bye.
This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. Text Stunning Digital Marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. Very special thank you to Ricky for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.